Hey there, and welcome back to Ask Cindy. I'm Cindy, and today we're diving deep into a topic that many of us experience but might not fully understand: trauma bonds. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship that felt intense, passionate, and full of emotional highs and lows but left you drained and confused? Well, it turns out that intensity isn't always what we think it is. Today, we're talking about why we often mistake these trauma bonds for true love and how childhood wounds can unknowingly shape our relationships. Especially if you're like me, someone who once struggled with the whole avoidant and anxious dynamic. But before we go deeper, I want to share a personal story that I think will resonate with you. You see, I used to be a withdrawer. In relationships, I pull away, close off, and keep my distance. And you know what? I found the more I distanced myself, the more the other person would chase. I was always attracting people who needed me in ways that felt absolutely suffocating. It was like I could never catch a break. I didn't understand it at the time, but the more they chased, the more repelled I felt. I was terrified of being too close, of being vulnerable, of letting someone in too deeply. But it wasn't just about them being needy. It was because deep down, I had unresolved childhood wounds that were dictating this pattern. So the issue kept repeating over and over again until I figured out how I was the constant. I didn't want to get too close to anyone because honestly, I hadn't learned to be vulnerable. And the irony, the more I pushed people away, the more they seemed to want me. It wasn't love, it was a trauma bond, and I didn't even know it. Here's the thing: trauma bonds often feel like real love, but they aren't. They're unconscious cycles, patterns, if you would, that we learned in childhood, particularly around attachment. When we feel that pull, someone who makes us feel these intense emotions, whether it's anxiety, excitement, or even discomfort, that's often a sign that something deeper is at play. It's not love, it's trauma replaying itself. The key is to understand these patterns and recognize them for what they truly are: triggers of unresolved childhood wounds. Once you can identify that, you can begin to break free and choose healthier, more balanced relationships. So let's break this down. Many of us have heard of attachment styles: anxious, avoidant, and secure. I was the avoidant type, always withdrawing, keeping my emotions at a distance, and guess what? I always attracted anxious, needy people who needed constant reassurance, attention, and validation. They would chase, and I would pull away, and it created this constant cycle of tension and emotional push and pull. Now, here's the thing: this dynamic isn't about love. It's about two people replaying unresolved childhood wounds. The anxious partner seeks connection to fill an emotional void, and the avoidant partner withdraws to protect themselves from the perceived emotional threats. This dynamic feels intense, right? But it's not healthy. It's a trauma bond, and it's based on old, unhealed emotional pain that we unconsciously seek to recreate. But where does this all come from? Why do we keep attracting the same kind of person with the same pattern over and over again? Well, it often goes back to our childhood experiences, particularly with our parents. If as a child you learn that emotional closeness wasn't safe, maybe your parent was emotionally unavailable, distant, or inconsistent, you might have learned to protect yourself by withdrawing when things get too close. For me, I had to unlearn the pattern that told me being close equals danger. When I was a child, I didn't get the nurturing I needed, so I became very self sufficient. I closed myself off to protect my heart, and unconsciously, I carried this defense mechanism into my adult relationships. The people I attracted weren't just random. They mirrored my unresolved childhood wounds, and in the process, I mistook the emotional tension for love. But the truth is, it wasn't love at all. It was simply familiar. And that familiarity kept me stuck in the same toxic cycle. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Trauma bonds can feel intense. When you're stuck in that whole anxious avoidant dance, the emotional highs and lows can seem like love. When the anxious partner chases and seeks reassurance, it might feel flattering at first. When you withdraw and feel the emotional distance, it might feel like freedom. But in reality, this isn't love. It's an emotional neediness playing out. For example, I would find myself being both drawn to and repelled by someone at the same time. I thought it was passion. I thought it was excitement. But it was just the same emotional cycle playing itself out over and over again. It wasn't love, it was comfort of chaos. So, how do we break this cycle? The first step is to make the unconscious conscious. Once you're aware of the patterns you're replaying from childhood, you can start to make different choices. You have to take a hard look at the dynamics you're recreating and ask yourself, is this healthy? Is this real love, or am I just recreating old wounds? For me, it took a lot of inner work, therapy, journaling, practicing vulnerability in a way that felt safe. I had to learn to trust that real love wouldn't feel suffocating and that emotional intimacy was safe. It took time, but I started healing by facing my wounds head on. In fact, it's the shortcut. A lot of times we don't realize how these dynamics continue to keep playing over and over and over again. And it's not until we're willing to look within ourselves and make these changes that we can start changing the dynamic. But at the end of the day, we have to realize we're the constant. And that if patterns keep repeating, they're repeating because we have some inner work to do. Once you do it, you will see a difference. So here's what I suggest. You find yourself stuck in this anxious avoidance style, reflect on your childhood. Think about how your relationship with your parents might be influencing your adult relationships. Are you recreating patterns from childhood? Secondly, practice vulnerability. Start allowing others in. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but emotional intimacy is the key to breaking these patterns. That is, of course, especially if you're a former withdrawer like I am. Third, challenge the cycle. Notice when you feel pulled to withdraw or chase someone whose triggers those childhood wounds. Can you pause and choose a different reaction? Remember, breaking free from trauma bonds is possible. It starts with awareness and a willingness to choose healthier patterns moving forward. I know how hard this is. It's not easy to break free from these patterns, but you can heal. And by recognizing the difference between trauma bonds, real love, you'll begin to attract healthier, more fulfilling relationships. In the next episode, we'll talk about the healing process and how to move beyond these cycles into a space of self love and healthy connection. If you'd like more personalized guidance on breaking these patterns and healing your attachment wounds, feel free to reach out for coaching. I'm here to support you on this journey. Thanks for listening today. I hope this episode helped you understand these dynamics a bit better. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, real love starts with loving and understanding who you truly are. Thanks for watching.